Welcome, traveler. You are now listening to Castle Black, the blackest House of Dragon podcast in all the realms.
Castle Black by For All Nerds is powered by our listeners. Everything we do, from our podcast, live events, website, and more, are independently funded. Please continue to support us through our Patreon page at patreon.com/forallnerds.
Castle Black. So this is the seat of the Night's Watch.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the blackest House of Dragon podcast in all the realms, powered by For All Nerds, where we discuss everything in the world of Game of Thrones from the perspective of people of color. Today, you're hearing the brand new co-host of Castle Black. That's me, Porshea Patterson-Hurst. You've heard me in previous episodes, previous season. Glad to be here again, and I'm joined by my fellow traveler.
Hello, everybody. This is Chika. You probably do not know me, but I am behind the scenes of For All Nerds and Views from the 616. I am the social media manager. So glad to be joining Porshea for Castle Black, the blackest podcast in all of the realms, and we're going to keep it as black as possible and as real as possible as we get into all of these Targaryen hijinks.
Hijinks indeed. And, we can't call ourselves the blackest podcast in all the realms if we don't come in with our AKA. So what are your AKAs, Chika?
Okay, so my AKAs, and guys, take it easy on me, I'm not used to doing these AKA things, but I am Chika, aka Chika Supreme, aka Sincerely Chika, because I'm nothing if not sincere, aka the Sea Snake's Loctician, aka Doctor Who Wanna Light My Fire.
Okay. I love the sea snakes run there, right?
Yeah. I had to do it because I got locks and I saw his lock wig. But anyway.
We'll get into that.
We'll get into it. What are your AKAs?
Well, I'm bringing back my AKAs from last season. I am Porshea Patterson-Hurst, aka the Maester of Disguise, aka the Three-Eyed Ravenclaw, aka Lady Mary Jane of Highgarden, aka a girl, I guess.
Okay. And we're here. We're alive. This is House of the Dragon. Wow.
Okay, I know that you're coming from a place where you were a part of all the live tweets that were going on with Game of Thrones. So you saw how we all fell apart as a Game of Thrones community with the final season. So how did you feel going into this House of Dragon season? Like, were you looking forward to it in any kind of way? Are you kind of like on the fence? And like, what is the biggest appeal really to watching this new series around this world?
Right. Well, I was definitely on the fence because season 8 of Game of Thrones hurt me. It hurt me. The ending hurt me. I wanted so much more. And I guess getting into House of the Dragon, I liked the Targaryens. I liked Daenerys. I mean, even when she snapped, I was just like, you know what? Sometimes women get pushed to the edge. There is a whole show called Snap. So I'm just like, okay, well, that happens. Why not? Why not learn more about her people and see more dragons and stuff? And so I thought it would be interesting to join in on this. And, as a social media manager, it's also really fun to interact with people when they're engaged for certain shows and seeing the live tweets, the disdain, the happiness, the run through the next day of what everybody was feeling, going through. I love being a part of that. So yeah, it made sense for me to join on for this.
Yeah, for me, I'm just I've always been that girl about dragons, and so I'm like, with House of Dragons, like we're gonna actually spend time with more live dragons. So I'm gonna sign up for that because, in this time period, having again, as everyone knows, I'm a book reader and I've read, the series and so far as everything that he's written for it so far. We'll see what happens. I know that different like Vin has told me it's a dream. You're never gonna get the final books, but we'll see what happens. Um, but I've read enough of it to be like super excited to see a time period where like there's not only one person with dragons, like everybody got dragons, and it's gonna get messy because so many people have dragons. So I really like want to see that, and I just really want to see the dragons like be on the scene and just do dragon things, like just roaming around the kingdom with their wings, burning stuff up. Like I just want to see more of that. So I
Yes,
was excited to get back for this, and hopefully, the story won't be trash, and that would make things a lot nicer.
definitely, definitely. Well, to get into this first episode, this episode is titled The Heirs of the Dragon. It's directed by three people. So Claire Kleiner, Gita Patel, and Greg Yatines. Don't at me. I'm doing my best. And then it's also written by Ryan Condal and Sarah Hess. Um,
Yeah, I think that like barring I know people like I haven't had trouble with how dark things have been. I know that Tatiana's talked about it. I know that other people online have talked about it. Cinematography rise, I think that this was a well shot episode. I could see things. I didn't but I also didn't have trouble seeing things before. So if I'm wrong, y'all let me know. Um but I think that it was like visually was great. And the storytelling was fine. The things that I liked the most about it, really, from this episode was kind of how it gets straight into, like, as you start the story, it's a narration about, um, like, inheritance of the throne and, like, what that looks like. And as it's been, like, a big thing for me, like, seeing, like, kind of how people shoot themselves in the foot. Like, I, like, love that that's a thing. And how hypocritical, like, they are for doing it. So here we get the whole setup for the whole thing that's not just the Targaryens, but also how the kingdom of Westeros works, and also how they are kind of like set up in opposition to Dorne, because in Dorne anyone can inherit no matter their gender, whereas in Westeros they make it a male only thing. And by making it a male only thing, like it's really kind of messed up because although a lot of the houses in Westeros have had this as a tradition for a long time, and the Targaryens, I don't know what the tradition was in Valyria, but like the Targaryens are coming in as people who haven't really gone by traditional Westerosi terms, and are now like they did that great council with Jaehaerys to like kind of like do that, kind of make up that decision. And it's really interesting to me because they really are like all the men are actually doing is like shooting themselves in the foot, because like you're not guaranteed to always have a male heir to run things the way you want to. And the way that you're like you think that you're like kind of like maintaining power by keeping it from women, but you're actually actively like keeping your lands in a state of turmoil, because you are always going to be beholden to, are is there a man somewhere that can do something, instead of just being like whoever gets is born is able to take care of the lands. Like it's just like you're setting yourself up for all of that, and that's patriarchy. Like you it's like holding power only by manifestation of taking power away from someone else, but you're also actively taking power away from yourself, and your ability to do something really great later. So I love, like, even though I hate patriarchy, I love that in this show, we're seeing from the very beginning how badly patriarchy really ruins things for people. And like it's never the answer, but they decided this is the answer here, and we're going to see how that all plays out.
Definitely. And something that I noticed from watching the episode is that while like Viserys and the small council were all like driving themselves crazy about who's going to be the heir and who's the right person and da 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 da, like you could see in contrast just how calm like Rhaenys, Corlys's wife, how calm she was. So during like the tourney that happens later on in the episode, you see her talking to Corlys about how all of the knights that are doing this are just very green. They've never been in a war before, you know, and just seeing the way that Corlys and Rhaenys talk to one another, you can just tell how wise Rhaenys is and like how heavily Corlys supports her. And to basically just deny themselves of having a wise ruler just because of her gender, I definitely agree with you about the fact that they're shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting too because Rhaenys is also like you can tell she's also like resigned to the fact of like they did to themselves. Like whenever the Baratheon came up to her and was like the queen that could have been or whatever, right? Like she's like her, but she's smiling at that, right? Like she's like, yeah, like this is it. It is what it is. One thing that's really messed up about it all too, like you're talking about the wisdom of Rhaenys, like her parents, the king that had the council called the council, and her mother, they were the most well respected monarchs in Westerosi history. Like they still like even to the day that Daenerys is around, they're still the most highly respected monarchs in Westerosi history because they do so many incredibly cool like good things for the kingdom, including the queen Alicent. She's the one who was the first dragon rider to go up to the wall, and the dragon would not go past the wall, so she knew there was something going on, and so she did the most that she could to make sure that the watch was doing the best it could to maintain the realm, and invested a lot into the watch. So there's a lot of she has a lot of respect up north. They have a lot of like stuff like that, and so like Rhaenys was learning from these very smart and like politically like inclined people as her parents, and only for her father to not like because it has to be messed up, right? Her father decides to call a council instead of just saying that my daughter is the one who's inheriting. So there was some beef that happened there too. So that Rhaenys has a little bit of like a chip on her shoulder for some things. And I like again shooting. They shot themselves in the foot. We're gonna see what happens when you have a woman who was skipped over for inheritance, and then now you only have your only choice is to give a woman inheritance after you just denied another one hers. So the hypocrisy and all of that, it's gonna come back to them, and it's not gonna be lovely when it all comes out. So I'm really looking forward to like how all the people who have done all this dirty stuff are gonna get theirs coming up.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and I think what's interesting is though, even though like Viserys was hypocritical in choosing Rhaenyra, and we'll get more into that a little bit later, as his heir, what I also think of is just the fact that Viserys, he became king because it was just given to him. It's not like he was like actively fighting for it, at least what we saw in this episode and in the beginning. And so he also did the same thing to Rhaenyra because she was not expecting to be heir at all. Like, she wasn't even thinking about it seriously up until even after her brother passed away. She was not thinking that she was going to be heir. So for Viserys to do what was done to him, I thought that that was also very interesting, except I feel like in Viserys' regard, I don't really know the reason why Jaehaerys would choose Viserys over his own daughter, but with Viserys, he chose Rhaenyra out of spite. So I just, we'll see. We'll see how this all plays out.
Yeah, with Viserys, it's very much like you were untrained in the arts of like politic, and like people are using that against you actively on your council, and it. Like there's no way you can't see all these people jostling you. Even like whenever they were all talking after his they just had the funeral for his wife and son. And he was like, he said it. He was like, I will not sit here while like I just lost. My family is falling apart, and y'all are just like hovering over their corpses like crows. Like, I'm not gonna do this. I can't do this. And so he knows how like crafty and shifty that council is, and they're not really looking out for his best means. They're looking out for like quote unquote, they're looking out for the realm's best goods, but they're all looking for their best way to be part of the realm's best needs, right? So I'm like, you can't be part of that and not see how messed up the council is and how like you can't trust any of those people. And yet he keeps doing things where the council's making the decisions. So it's just like this, it's weird. Again, you can tell he's untrained to be in the position that he's in. And like you're saying, it's strange that he thinks that that's going to work, knowing how all those men, especially knowing how all these men feel about women holding power here, how he thinks it's going to work out for his daughter.
Yeah.
So the second thing I liked, since we're going to keep it moving, another thing that I liked, not that I like the patriarchy, but I like the chaos there, is the chaotic dragons. Like, we only really see 2 dragons and a dragon skull the whole episode. We see Rhaenyra's dragon, and then we see Daemon's dragon, and they're both kind of like, so Balerion, like the skull, like he was the Black Dread, and he was like, not only because I feel like these dragons are a little skinny, like they're not like bulked out. Balerion was a big boy. Like, he was a big old dragon. Like, his wingspan was like the biggest wingspan recorded for the dragons from the Targaryen line. And he was like the conqueror's dragon. That's why everybody was like he really like came down and knocked the lords into putting their swords up for the Iron Throne. Like, it was not even like a big, like, as soon as he came onto the field, they thought they was going to do something. They figured out they were not. It was like horrendous. And so I'm really was like hoping we would, in this series, is because it's about the House of the Dragons, and we're going to like see a lot of more dragons. Hopefully that we could like dig into more, like how, because we know that by the time Daenerys is around, the dragons haven't been around in decades. And that's why it's really like intriguing when her dragons hatch, because no one's has seen any live dragons for decades. And so it's real, knowing what's coming up, we know that the dragons are not going to be around. They're going to go kind of like dormant and extinctish, right? So we're not going to see so many. So I really hope that we can spend a lot more time learning why that is. Like, what is going on with the dragons that they their care kind of dies off over time, and what does that look like? And I was hoping we might see like the dragon keepers, like more about what they're doing and like how the dragons interact with them, because you can't really, the target, like even Viserys was saying, like everyone thinks that we can control the dragons, but they can't. Like, nobody can control the dragons, right? They can just like build good relationships with them, and like hopefully the dragons will listen. But they're dragons, like they're gonna do what they want to do. So I'm really intrigued by like the dragon keepers that were like holding like the staffs and like what that's actually gonna do. I just want to spend more time with the dragons and see what kind of like mischief will happen, especially since we see that Daemon likes to get up with mischief with his dragon. So we'll see. We'll talk about that more later. But I just was like, this is going to be interesting.
Definitely. I mean, I was scared that those dragon keepers were going to get cooked up. I was like, oh, he's about to spit fire at you for getting too feisty and talking to him. But luckily that didn't happen yet. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to learn more about how they're able to even manage them, because you would think, or at least based off of Game of Thrones, like, Daenerys was always the one that was handling her dragons because they listened to her. So for them to trust somebody else to do it, it's just like, okay, are you giving that person power? And then if you can do that, how is that going to play into like these other factions and like the small council, like trying to stake their claim and stuff? Yeah, so I guess to also get into what I liked, one of the things that I liked is the bond amongst the women. From what I've seen, and I feel like I'm talking more about like Rhaenyra's bond with her mother and also Rhaenyra's bond with Alicent, Alicent Hightower. So, from the start of the episode, we see that Rhaenyra is like flying her dragon. She comes down. Alicent is there to greet her, and they ride in this really cool looking carriage back to the castle. And as soon as they get back to the castle, Rhaenyra is checking on her mother. And what I thought was really heartwarming about the scene is the fact that everybody is putting so much pressure on Rhaenyra's mother, Emma, on giving birth to this male heir. That's all people talk about. That's all they check on. And Rhaenyra is solely focused on how her mother is doing and talking to her about that. And so I think that that was just good to see that bond, despite the fact that Emma wasn't really like trying to hear it at the time. Just to see that somebody is so concerned for her, like as a woman, like, okay, like, how are you? I want to know how you feel about things. And I think it was just sad because based off of this episode, you just see how miserable Emma was in that last stage of pregnancy. And you really don't have much that you can do when you're that heavily pregnant. And so the only like joy she had really was being able to rest in a bathtub, and the water wasn't even hot. So it was just sad to see like how she was while she was pregnant, and I guess just to know that her daughter cared. I thought that that was good to see. And then getting on to Rhaenyra's bond with Alicent, I think that with all of the pressure that Rhaenyra has on her, I feel like she's of a mind, at least in the beginning, to not really pay attention to it. She never really thought she was going to be heir, so she didn't put any energy into actively like participating in things. So you see her being late to meetings, you see her being late to this heir tourney, you see her just doing what she feels like doing because she just feels that Daemon is the foregone conclusion. He is the heir. And Alicent, from what I saw, is like literally the only person that legitimately thinks that Rhaenyra could be an heir. And she like urges her to learn as much as she can. And which, I mean, surprisingly, Rhaenyra is able to like recount the history that she was talking about and stuff. But still, like, I feel that Alicent really believes in her friend and is there for her friend. And so it's just good that Rhaenyra has that type of person alongside her for this journey.
Yeah, I feel like for Rhaenyra, I feel like a lot of like of her personality makes a lot of sense. Like to me, she's like the embodiment of like that may be your wife, but that's my mama. So I'm gonna go check on my mama and see how she's doing. And I want like when you're talking about her being late, I think that very much has to do with like she literally puts her mother above any of these little responsibilities, right? Like while her mother put the responsibility of bringing an heir into the world above all these other things, she didn't put it really above her daughter. She just put it above like anything, any other courtly thing she's supposed to be doing. Um, she is like, no, I'm gonna put my family above any of these things that y'all are like giving me as um, like kind of like consolation prize to like not being able to hold power. So I will go check on my mom, and however long I'm with my mom, it's however long I'm going to be late to whatever meeting you're going to ask me to. So I really love that she's like putting that in perspective. Um, I think also like the way that she responds to her knowledge that she's not going to be the one in power is like it makes sense, because if she were always looking for power grabbing, she would drive herself like insane, because there's no way to try to grasp for power knowing that no one's going to try to give you power, especially like they're not trying to give power to women. And she's doing the thing that's going to maintain her sanity by like not focusing on these things too much. And I don't think that like Alicent talking to her about the history of like Westeros or whatever is like new to her. I feel like she just know, like she's been tutored in this stuff since she was a child. I feel like she just was like, I get what you're trying to do, homie, but like I know this back and forth. Like, don't worry about whether or not I have this information. I've got it. I'll just like, you see me flying on my dragon, you think that's all I do, but I understand. I'm just not trying to focus too much because it would drive me insane. So I think there's like a level of like that with it. I also think, just like with the council, and like we've talked about this before, about like how Hightower is a really old, really rich house in Westeros. It's like the richest at this time period. Even above House Lannister. House Lannister's kind of new to like having gold. Like they got it, they're rich, but they're not as rich as Old Town and the Hightowers. They are the richest and the most like noble of the nobles. And when Aegon Targaryen came in and conquered Westeros or whatever, he basically upset the power vacuum that was going on in like that part of Westeros, like southern part. So they're kind of like, they've been looking for regaining that power, and the fact that her father is on the small council makes me not like, sure, he brought his daughter to court ostensibly to be friends with the princess, but I don't know that she would put her friendship or anything else above whatever power grasping her family wants her to do, as we see later in the show. So does Rhaenyra have a friend that she can be, that is loyal to her in this story in Alicent? I don't know about that. So we'll see more.
Yeah, we'll have to see more. I feel like it's just an observation of like this episode, but like the whole thing, man, I can't say that. I wouldn't say that. I would also say at least one of the last things that I liked was the fact that we see the entry of Criston Cole. So, one of the things that Viserys decides to do, because he's so excited that his wife is having this boy that, I mean, they don't have gender reveal parties, so he's just assuming that it's a boy, but he decided it's a boy. I'm going to have this tourney. All these people are going to come in and celebrate. So they're at this tourney, and Daemon is kicking people's ass. And finally, we see Criston Cole, who is I guess he's just more of a commoner, like some sort of common guard.
Well, he's from House Cole, so that actually is a noble house. Yeah.
Okay. Well, he's from a noble house, but it's not like he's rich. He's not like the Hightowers, the Lannisters. Like, he's not rich like that, but he's from like a lower house. And I like the fact that he beat Daemon in the tourney, because Daemon was particularly vicious. He's always trying to get on Otto Hightower's nerves. So first he fought Otto's like son, who's Alicent's brother, and literally got hit. Otto's son, like, I don't know what his name is, but that son got his face like smashed in, like cut up. I thought he was gonna die. Like at first I was like, oh, okay, this horse is gonna fall on him and that's it, right? But that luckily didn't happen.
Sidebar, it is foreshadowing what happens to a different house son during the reign of like King Joffrey, or before, actually, but during the reign of King Baratheon, like Robert Baratheon.
Yeah,
something happens to what is her name? Dang it! Oh my gosh, the Tyrells, Marjorie,
right.
Marjorie, okay. And her brother, they have an older brother. And he was in a tournament during Robert Baratheon's time, and he fought, what is the Dornish guy that we all love, who now is in?
Oh my gosh, the Star eyeball Wars. Man. Yeah.
It's I know.
Isn't it Pablo?
No, it's an O. It's like Octurne. Whatever. I'm sorry, guys. I just haven't been in that space, brain space in a while. Maybe it'll pop up in a second. He actually unseated him in the same way that this happened, and he
Pedro.
No, Pedro, like, okay, that's the actor's name.
Oh wait, that's his real name. Yeah. Sorry, his name's not Pablo, y'all. Like, yeah. Don't at me.
But he was unseated in the similar way, and actually sustained a lifelong injury from it, and so like he has to use mobile devices to get around in
Mm.
their house seat in Highgarden. But like he's actually well regarded, and um the guy who unseated him apologizes profusely and is always like pretty kind to the Tyrells after that. But it's interesting because it's like I feel like George R. R.
Doran.
Martin.
Sorry.
What is this? Oberyn. Yes, I knew it was an O. I knew it was an O, and I was like, oh, I
It
can
was
get
like
it.
It's Doran Martell. That's what they
No,
said.
it's Oberyn. It's Oberyn
Oh.
from
His
Oberyn
name's
Martell from
Oberyn.
Dorne.
Yeah.
Yes, Oberyn. So so that's what it's really interesting because I feel like George R. R. Martin does this so much throughout the series is he'll foreshadow something that might happen today or it may happen a decade or a century from now, but he foreshadows that in different ways through a story.
Yeah, I'm not going to be surprised if Otto's son is permanently in a wheelchair just like Bran because like he was fucked up. But regardless, I was glad that Criston beat Daemon because Daemon was getting on my nerves. Especially after his whole like I'm a cop, I'm an op, I'm gonna cut people up and all that shit. I was definitely tired of him. And I thought he was very messy when he made Alicent give him like the flowers of favor after he literally just beat her brother's ass. So Criston beating Daemon, I thought it was nice. I think it's good to see him yield. And then I was also happy that Criston was able to save himself because Daemon was about to stab his ass and he got him. He like stepped on his arm like, no, you're not going to kill me. You're not going to stab me in the back because I'll know your little tactics. And so he yielded and stayed alive. So I like that.
Yeah. I think that we all know that Daemon's a problem. And so to see the more checks you can have against a problem, the better.
Yeah.
Speaking of problems, I had a problem with a couple of things this episode. More than a couple, but we're going to get there. The first thing, because I know we're going to get to the main things because you have them on your list. Mm-hmm. The first thing that I was like, oh no. And this is, again, because it's reminding me of what I dislike about what I've read about the Targaryens is going to happen. Otto Hightower sending his teenage daughter to seduce a grieving middle-aged or older king is disgusting. And the man's just looks at her like, yeah, you're gonna go and you're gonna go to the man's chamber and you're gonna wear one of your mother's slutty dresses. Yeah, you're gonna do that. Thank you.
I was so disgusted because first of all, Otto knows that Viserys has pus coming out of his fucking back. It was disgust, like pus, straight up pus, y'all. And they cauterized it. But there's pus coming off this man's back. He don't even know what that's from. That could be a disease. And he's just like, yes. And he's just like, okay, daughter, you know what? Go wear your dead mother's dress, and go seduce your best friend's dad.
Her father. A man who is old enough to have led to your birth himself. Yes.
Right. The same man that literally cut open his wife not a couple minutes ago. And
not some hours ago, girl.
Not hours. And like he's just like, you know what? Just go comfort him. And the thing about it is that Miss Cuticle Biter went and did it with her book. And
and this is something that is possibly a deep cut. So the thing about it is Alicent was there, like the old king we saw at the beginning. Whenever he passed away, she gave him comfort by reading a book to him. And people were like spreading rumors that like, because it didn't happen that long ago, so she was a teenager. Or maybe it's this king. But we'll see what comes of her offering comfort to a king. I mean, it's not, well, we'll see. I just feel like, I'm like, this is like one of the richest families with the most land, and you're conniving enough to put your daughter, maybe that was all by design. Maybe the reason why you brought your daughter to court in the first place was to try to see how high she could rise up on this thing, right? And like, maybe, and then also maybe it may go to show, like, it might have been spurred on by Daemon asking for her favor, because Daemon knows that this man is power grasping, and like the reason why Daemon was set to marry the woman in the veil, that is like his wife in the veil, is because Otto Hightower is behind all of this. Otto Hightower is the reason why Daemon is not close to his brother. He's the reason why he was like that he's betrothed to the woman in veil, why he was kicked out of from being the master of law, like his brother said, kicked out of being the master of coin, and made the city watch head, all because of Otto Hightower. And Otto Hightower wants to be the one closest to being into the inheritance line. He doesn't want Daemon there because he can control Viserys as much as to an extent with that he knows he could not do to Daemon. So instead of trying to get his daughter to seduce or to like betroth his daughter to Daemon years before, he gets him married to someone who's not in the court and won't be a problem for him to have to deal with later. So I feel like Daemon picking his daughter for favor wasn't just to get under Otto's nerves. It's also to be like, I know that you were trying to keep me away from people who would help me gain power, including your daughter here. Like, I know what you're
Right.
doing.
Right. Honestly, Otto's been plotting since Emma had all the miscarriages. She had like 5.
Yeah.
He's been
He's
ready for Emma to die. He's like,
Yes, he
you're
has.
gonna die, and I'm gonna hoe out my child, whether her mother is alive or not. And ooh,
It's so bad. So like I will say this is one of the things that's consistent across George R.R.'s writing. This is not just like a show thing. Like, they are a lot of nasty old men in Westeros who are betrothing themselves to teenagers, and it's disgusting.
yeah, just gross.
It is so gross. So clearly dislike that. The other thing I want to bring up that I disliked um, is I think that it is like very like I love a good foreshadow. I love a good storytelling point. But I don't like that like the reasons that why we're seeing Viserys might not be the right king or the good king is all based on like these little tiny things and things that are like not within his control to an extent, right? Like him not being able to control whether like his wife can bear children and have a son, which also I think is just like it's just again showcasing like how patriarchy will bite you in your like will shoot you in your foot, so don't do it kind of thing. But I think that's what he's kind of like a stand-in for, like to showcase all the problems with it. um but also like him and the festering wound and the like getting cut on the throne, and um him not being in control of the small council, like like Otto Hightower being the main one running the small council, and him just like kind of like adding to it. Him not like paying enough attention to all the different like power manifesting, like both like on the council and like with his brother, and with like not protecting his daughter enough where she's not gonna become part of this like Game of Thrones, and also like he's just not responding well to any of the things. Like he's following the lead of Otto Hightower, and it's going to be to his detriment, and it's only going to be to Hightower's gain, and he's not like grasping that. And so while I love that like it's showing like we're getting a good idea of like why this man shouldn't be on the throne, I also don't feel like I feel like he like is I feel like the ways that are calling him weak um are very like surface things that are calling him weak, right? Like the fact that he is not like a battling person like his brother is, right? Or isn't like I feel like there's a lot of like I know in this time period George R. R. Martin like puts this into the books a good bit, and like generally like how people talk about men and like their virility about like him not having sons, right? Like how they try to like use that against them, like, oh, you're weak, oh, this XYZ is going on, oh, you must be weak. It's like very um like just like bad like masculinity, like fragile masculinity, and like all this kind of crap behind it. And I really just like I wish there was like more interrogation of that and less of it just like being like, yeah, for all these reasons he's a bad king, you know? Like I wish there was a ways that like they actually like kind of probed into that more. And maybe we will. But I am not like sure if I'm gonna be on board with them making the case why this man should not be king. Outside of him just like for me the thing that shows he should not be king is that he doesn't even like feel passionate enough about the woman that he seems like he's loving to like let her know or ask her consent before he just tells another person to cut her open and that it's going to her blood loss is going to kill her. Like why would you like at least like ask? I know she's drugged up, but say something. Like that shows me that shows me more about his character honestly than a lot of this other stuff does.
Yeah, I feel like I don't, I feel like there are just different signs of him not being a good king. So the fact that, like, and we'll talk about this later, but the fact that Corlys was talking about the triarchy at the beginning of the episode with the council and talking about how, like, these people are taking over different areas and that they should be alert. And if it hampers, like, their seaports, then that's going to be a major problem. And all Viserys was concerned about was this tourney for this gender reveal baby that he didn't know was a boy. The fact that he didn't, well, and I'll also talk about like the C-section thing, him not telling Emma about what was going to happen to her. Um, Even the fact that like Rhaenyra, like he was so weak-minded that Rhaenyra had to be the one to say Dracarys so that she could technically send her mother and brother off so that they could like be burned and stuff. Like he is weak the way that Damon talked about. And yeah, you're right. I wonder how that's going to like further like manifest like within the show.
Yeah, but I feel like to be fair, right? We don't see Viserys with a dragon. We see Rhaenyra with her dragon, but we don't see Viserys with a dragon. So I don't know that he had a dragon to call to say Dracarys to. I think it was gonna be Rhaenyra no matter what because that's her dragon.
Oh, I thought that Balerion was his dragon, but it died.
Right, so he has no dragon right now. He's
Right,
dragonless.
right. Mm.
And you don't want to be like you don't want to
You
be
don't want to
calling
be the
someone else's
dragonless
dragon.
person. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So there's like a lot there. We're just like strength and weakness in Viserys. There's just a lot.
definitely. Um, I guess to touch on what I didn't like, and we already started talking about this. I heavily disliked Viserys' betrayal of Emma. I think that, like you said, Portia, I feel like he should have given her a heads up or told her this is what's happening. Like they need to cut you open because the baby is not coming out, and either you're both going to die or I could at least like save the child. And I feel like he could have appealed to like her mother's love to be like, okay, this is going to happen to you. And even though she's like screaming in pain and scared, she would at least have an idea of what's going on. But the fact that he hid that from her, but he supposedly like loved her, I thought that that was so harmful to see. And like, you can even tell like from their past conversations in the episode, the fact that she had so many, like she had miscarriages, she gave birth and they were like stillborn. She gave birth and some of the babies died, like they didn't come of age. They just died in the cradle. And I feel that like that was a good example of just showing how selfish Viserys was in constantly having her be pregnant. Now, I don't know what type of birth control that they have. I feel like they've got to have something since they have like like prostitute house pleasure houses. Like there's something along those lines that's there, and I feel that, his pursuit of having a son, like, he always put himself above Emma up until her death. And so I thought that that was really sad to see. And at the same time, when they finally cut her open and we see that this baby, well, we don't really see, but the baby ended up being a boy. and Emma was dead, then he decided to name the baby Bane. And so what I got from Balon, oh, it's Balon. Okay, well, I heard, well, I'm not saying that it is Balon, but I thought it was Bane. And so I was just like, oh, the bane of my existence, the source of my misery, because I did all this work to have you. And then, well, anyway, Balon ended up dying anyway. Um, and so I just feel that it was just really heartless. And I think on top of that, because of the fact that Rhaenyra was so close to her mom, when they decided to make that decision to cut her open, I don't understand why they didn't send for Rhaenyra to go see her mom. Now, they could have taken her out, but at least let her come in to say goodbye or let her know what's going on with her mom to say goodbye. But I think that that's also just in regard to the patriarchy, and I know better. So I'm not going to tell these women what to do, even though it has something to do like with their own bodies, which I guess is really reminiscent of what's going on in America now.
They know
Um,
better. The men
they
know better to make a decision for the women in their lives, quote unquote.
right, to our detriment. But yeah,
To everyone's again, the patriarchy works to everyone's detriment. But here we go.
yeah, here we go with this. And so like Rhaenyra never got to say goodbye to her mom, and that was the person she was closest to, and she was constantly checking up on her. And so I thought that that was like incredibly messed up.
Yep.
Yeah.
I just like sad too because like going back to like Cersei saying like if you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die, like you know, and they played like that's the thing too, is this man took up a stake for showing that he had a case to be considered for inheritance whenever King Jaehaerys was like looking for inheritance. That man could have sat that out. He could have been like, I can't guarantee if they can cite in my favor because I'm a man, but I can't guarantee that all the children I'm gonna have are gonna be boys. So I'm gonna sit this one out because I don't want this to turn on its head as soon as I'm in, right? Like he could have done that, but he didn't. So he played a Game of Thrones, and here we are. And she played the Game of Thrones because she supported him in this as his wife, and now she's dead. So it's just you have to have your head together to play this Game of Thrones.
Yeah, you got to have your head together. You just got to get away from it so you could survive. Yeah. The other thing that I disliked was the fact that Viserys chose Rhaenyra as his heir to spite Daemon. I thought that that was terrible because he wasn't choosing Rhaenyra based off of her merit. He just did it because Daemon called him weak. It wasn't even the fact that Daemon said, oh, that Balon was heir for a day. That pissed him off. That's why he called him into like the throne room and was ready to cuss him out. But really what really made him sign the dotted line that it was going to be Rhaenyra was Daemon calling him weak. And the thing is, he is weak, but he didn't want to admit that to himself. And so that's why he chose Rhaenyra. But the reason why I feel like it's terrible is because, yes, Rhaenyra could be like the heir to the throne, and she is the heir to the throne. But she wasn't adequately prepared because all of her life, she's been living it as if there's going to be a son that's going to be born and they're going to be the heir. And I'm just sort of here. She goes to these meetings, or they make her go to these meetings, and instead of actively participating in the meetings, she's pouring these people's wine. Like she's like basically a glorified maid, you know? And the people that are there, it's not as if they're actually actively cheering for her. Even Otto isn't cheering for her in the
Mm-hmm.
sense that like
Even Valerian House Valerian is an act like they are quote unquote, and then
right,
but as soon as as soon as they get a chance to pipe up about like their claim to the throne, they're ready. So are
right,
they? Yeah.
right. Nobody is really siding for Rhaenyra, so she is effectively on her own in the same way that Damon was, except Damon had a little bit more support since he was a man and stuff. And so I thought that that was really harmful that he chose her to emasculate Damon after Damon emasculated him. And then at the same time, it's just like, okay, if he was going to choose an heir, to be honest, and like, I know that they have a chip on their shoulder, but he really could have chose Rhaenys. Because like Corliss said, you can choose Rhaenys, and yes, she's a woman, but she already gave birth to her heir, and that's a boy. So, like, there you go. Like, you're still going to eventually get back the patriarchy that you want. And even in choosing Rhaenys, Rhaenys already has like her the reputation, right? She has like the reputation. People like knew her parents were like so strong. She grew up with that. Her husband is like super rich. He has all of these ships. He's the master of ships, the sea snake. Like he could advocate for her. They're very like wise. And instead of doing that, he just chose his own daughter. And so by doing that, he like basically bestowed upon her like the same kingdom or royalty or whatever that was bestowed on him, and he wasn't expecting it, and Rhaenyra wasn't expecting it either. So it'll be interesting to see like how she is able to grow from this, if she's able to get allies and stuff. And as I like mentioned before, Otto isn't really siding with her. Like he sort of is, but like we saw earlier, like he's hoeing his daughter out. So I'm sure that if Alicent ended up giving birth to a boy, well, by Rhaenyra, like my daughter's son is going to be the heir now. So yeah, so I didn't like that either.
Yeah, I think my thing, and I again talking about Viserys being weak. Um, I think it was very telling, and I really like this is again. I when I first read Damon, the first time I read the book Fire and Blood that talks about all of this stuff, I had every reason. Like I was like, oh, I do not like this man. And then you get to the later parts, and I'm like, I can kind of see where he's coming from. And then I was like, okay, whatever. So I feel like we're probably going the same journey with him on the TV show. Um, there is a lot to his merit, right? Like we have to think about like at this point of time in Game of Thrones or in like in Westeros, basically. Um, like they said, there was no one making sure that King's Landing was safe. And this man came through and trained the people because before they were like not really trained well, and gave them a uniform, all these things that made them like clearly the protectors of the city. And so he hasn't done things that have been detrimental whenever he's been like the reason why Hightower wanted him not to be the Master of Laws or Master of Coins, because like he was putting pressure on the noble houses that Otto Hightower did not want to put on the houses. So he was like, make him city watch. And now he's playing scared about them 2000 City Watch guys, but it's like you thought he wouldn't be able to take care of it, but he took care. Like he's competent in what he does. So that's where a lot of this hate is manifesting between them. Like he wants someone he can mold and shape to do what he wants. He doesn't want someone who is capable and competent of themselves. And Damon isn't nice about it. He's not gonna just be like, it's fine. Like no, he's like I'm gonna fight you back. Like I'm gonna be in your face. I'm gonna be aggressive, and it's very telling. And you can kind of see Damon like have that look on his face when his brother decides the way that he's gonna call him is his ultimate show of power, right? Is like sitting on an iron throne with Kingsguard in between him and his brother. And it honestly makes him look weaker because you can't just sit and talk to me, your own brother. You're like that scared I'ma stab you that you're gonna put 4 trained men in a freaking pointy short sword freaking throne in between me and you to have this one conversation because you're not scared of me, right? But you are.
But he is. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He was weak. I mean, it was a good read. It cost him the being heir, but it was a good read because Damon was telling that as like, you don't even know what you're doing. Like the council is just leading you on a merry chase.
And you over here looking to me like I'm the and that was the thing that was the most annoying is that Viserys like that's the it's not that it's like I get calling him weak and I don't play into that. I want to play like he just doesn't have a backbone, and that's what his downfall is because like he stood up for Daemon to the small council, And but Otto Hightower had his card, and he knew the way because once they were putting pressure on him about succession, right on as his wife and child had just died, he was like, "Oh, I can use this to my favor." Um, his brother said, "Like, I'm gonna just look out for a way to use this against his brother." He got the evidence he needed to use it against his brother, and he knew it was a sore spot for Viserys, so he knew it was gonna work. And it's just like we see this man like making all these great schemes and using them, and Viserys is so short-sighted and was not going to stand up for his brother under the circumstance, and even though you can see what the play is from a mile away, won't stand up to Otto Hightower for making all this stuff happen.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting to see. We'll see how all of this plays out. I'm certain as soon as Rainier like fucks up on something or something's gonna happen, Damon's gonna be back. He's gonna come right back.
It ain't gonna take much.
Like cockroaches, he's gonna come back.
Like bad wigs.
Oh,
from Game of Thrones. Now we have them come over here into House of Dragon. They come back.
Yes. All right, guys. The chaos is coming. So let's get into our foreshadowing.
Yes. So we knew the chaos was coming with these wigs. As soon as we saw the trailers, we were all prepared for the wiggetry to continue on in this franchise about these dragons. I'm just gonna say it again. I am super, super disappointed in who they cast as Rhaegar Targaryen. That man was supposed to be the sexiest man in Westeros. That man was supposed to be like Henry Cavill, like coming through strapping and just like with the nice sexy
muscles,
like women were ready to throw their garbs at him, throwing everything,
their britches, like, whatever they
was trying to set up situations to be alone with this man. Like he could write poetry and write songs. Like he was just, every woman wanted to be. Cersei Lannister cried her heart out when she figured out this man was not checking for her as a teenager. Right. And here we are with this dusty, like sweaty wig, like man, and this random woman who doesn't even like she's a Stark. Whenever they finally showed Rhaegar Targaryen and like Jon's mother, Lyanna Stark, it was like they were supposed to be the hottest couple we would ever see in Game of Thrones, and they gave us that BS. I bring that all up to say that wig did not help the cause. I was already disappointed in who they casted. I don't know who that man was, but he was not Rhaegar Targaryen. He was not hot enough to be Rhaegar Targaryen. That wig just made it worse. The wig from Daenerys' brother Viserys, that wig was trash. And here we are here with a bad wig again. Like we just keep getting bad wigs.
New series and a bad wig. I want to understand because they decided to make Lord Corlys' family, that's the
Valerians.
Right. So they decided to make them like black, mixed, whatever you want to call it, ethnic. So how y'all can have a whole house of like black people and you get the most ghetto looking wigs? Come on,
dry. Man. Like dry. Black people, let me tell you this. Okay?
It looked like a mop.
You can't be a black family based on some seas and not know how to moisturize, because that sea water will dehydrate you. Everybody knows how to be moisturized, so they would moisturize their hair. Their hair should look nice.
It should look nice, but you know what? I mean, the kids' hair, Corlys and Rhaenyr's kids' hair looking wild like that. I mean, I was not surprised considering their mama is not black. So I was just like, okay, because you don't know what to do. But like for her husband to have that mop wig, like, come on, HBO Max. Y'all can't hire like Arrogant Tay. That's Nicki Minaj wig man. Y'all can't hire Touched by Tokyo. He also works with Cardi sometimes. Like there are enough like black wig people that really could have made a dreadlock wig look the way that it needed to look. Okay, y'all could have even borrowed Sierra's dreadlock wig from when she was pregnant with baby Future. Like,
Look,
but
something. But no, because like you gotta like because you gotta lay it right, and they don't have the people laying it right back there. And I mean,
mm-mm.
there are people on YouTube, black hair artists on YouTube,
Come
who know how to
on.
lay a wig that looks like it is cinema ready. And I do not understand why y'all couldn't just give these people the guilds things they need and
Right.
let them be on running your set, because there really is no, you don't need to have thousands of dollars to lay a wig right. You just have to have the right expertise and hands, and y'all are not putting enough like thought behind like investing in people who know what the f they're doing when it comes to hair.
Right. It's a damn shame.
It is a real shame. And I y'all cutting TV shows from the app for what? Like, what are we doing? And I just want to say that I need not to see this white lady with twists in her hair never again. She is a Targaryen. They be wearing those nice
Mm-hmm.
braids with the double layer braids. They be doing all kinds of cute stuff. She can do all of that, but I don't need to see this lady with no twist or something in front of her head ever again.
Okay, she's Miss Kim
I
Kardashian.
don't need it.
Miss
Mm-mm.
Kim Kardashian with her Bo Derek braids.
If that
Um,
lady comes through with some Fulanis, I'm gonna be entirely over it. I will throw something at the TV screen because I can't. I will
I'm
not.
not itching for a sex scene between Corliss and Rhaenyra, but if she ends up having like a little BBL, I wouldn't be surprised by that.
Oh no, not a
Uh,
BBL.
a BBL, a dragon BBL. Okay, the fat coming from
She
somewhere.
carrying them real dragoons. Okay.
The real dragoons is up in them cheeks for real. Um, but yeah, I would say what else did we the other thing chaos is coming. So Damon, like we said, Damon is a messy little bitch. He's a messy hoe. And so he saw when he was doing his jousting and he was winning and he bust up Otto's son, Allison's brother. He went over to her and she's like, "Oh, I'd like to get favor from you." And I'm just looking at her. I'm like, "Girl, your brother's gonna be in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. His face is messed up. They don't got plastic surgery. Like, messed up. And you have to give him flowers." And so she's all looking at her dad because you know what? I think she looked at Otto to be like, for Otto to say, like, no. But
Sheets was smiling when that
she
man.
was,
She was. Why'd she even go over there? That was my question, because her friend is that man's niece, so she had every reason to go over there and talk to that man. She is a lady in waiting. She'll kind of go over there behind her. She could have sat where she was.
she really could have said, but no, she did not. She
No,
ended
she
up giving
didn't.
him flowers. And it's like, okay, you better put flowers on your brother's grave if he can survive falling off that horse. Like shit. Oh, he fell off that thing.
I'm just glad that horse got up and didn't roll on that man. Like,
I thought it was gonna roll on him. I was like, "Ooh, man, your back, your knees, your face, everything just gone." But
gone.
no, um, mm-mm.
This another messy thing is like Criston Cole. Like I like so, you know me. I'm gonna reference the book and the lore. I kind of possibly remember this name for what ends up with it, but the fact that he's from Dorne is messy in itself. I'm sure he probably just came because he felt like being part of like the festivities and like showing that he's like got all the power that like he has and like he's good at fighting. Um, but Dorne at this point in time is not really effing with Westeros. Like they're low key doing a code war of like medieval time code war where they're kind of just like, yeah, like, hi, we see you around, but we're not part of your whole kingdom, so y'all can stop trying to bring us into stuff. And they're also leading raids against House Baratheons, because they're like kind of close together, like in landmass. So like they kind of like do like scavenger trips over to like their lands and take stuff or whatever, and then go back to Dorne. So like they're low key not really effing with Westeros, but every once in a while they'll send someone over officially to be like, "Oh no, we're cool with y'all. Look, we brought wine," you know. But for the most part, they're not. So I'm like, I don't know if he's supposed to be being messy, like if he's here on the behalf of the Dornish, like being like messy, or if he's not here on part of the like Dornish like monarchs, and he just wants to like do stuff on his own. He's trying to set a name for himself in Westeros outside of Dorne. Like, I don't know what this man's game is here, but I'm interested because he's messing stuff up at court. And it looks like he's trying to get close to Rhaenyra. So we'll see what that's about.
I won't be surprised if he tries to clap her cheeks later on in the season, because he just gives me that. And considering what we've seen technically in the future, I don't think it's really best for Targaryens to get with any brown haired person, okay? Because you might end up dead. Like, and with Rhaenyra, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know about him. We'll see how messy he gets. He was a little okay, I guess, in this episode, but time will tell. Something else that I was seeing was the fact that after Viserys decided to banish Daemon, Daemon took off on his dragon with his mistress. And so I was just like, okay, so first of all, your brother told you to get your lady wife, who you call the bronze bitch. You were supposed to go get her, but instead...
Not go get her, go to her. You're supposed to be riding up to go see her.
Oh, well, he's like, I'm finna get my honey trap to come with me. And so he brings over this girl, puts her in a nice little cloak. And meanwhile, I just feel like that's going to be messy. I wonder if he's going to take his mistress to the Vale, because, okay, like, call her bronze bitch all you want. You don't need to bring that shit to her face. That is very disrespectful.
And like, I'm not like the disrespect, because like the Vale, the only way to like, because like they have the way that it's safeguarded is like on top of like this immense mountain, and so there's different gates like as each part of the mountain as you keep coming up, and so if they don't want you up there, you can't get up there. It's like an impassable pass, and you have to come up like in a like lift thing that they actively pull you up in. Because he's on a dragon, he can just fly himself up to the top and fly over. Imagine that man pulling up in the courtyard on dragon back, and there's a lady right behind him.
Right.
Like,
and the fact she don't even got no ass, like, and you bring her over.
Like, how is she? Like, I just like the standards for what y'all are like pushing. Like, it's not. Y'all, it feels like y'all are trying to say these people are attractive, and I just don't see where.
Now, I thought Doctor Who, Daemon, Doctor Who.
He's giving it in that wig a little bit. He's giving like a little bit of something.
Face.
A little, yes. He's giving a little bit of something.
Body. I mean, after seeing, first of all, he ain't even finished. After seeing him do his little dance with his mistress and stuff, I was just like,
that's
dang, I gotta the weak stroke game. He stopped. I'm like, well, shit, you didn't even let her. Dang, like, what about this girl? Okay, she's making all the sounds and stuff, and you know this shit's fake. You know it was fake because
she was waiting for the audience that was watching them. She was like, let me make it act like I care about what this Targaryen man is doing behind me.
She's just like, what up? She ain't get no nut. She ain't nothing. She's like, nothing. Okay, gotta start pillow talking him. I gotta start telling him like, he's great, he's amazing, and that got her.
We can bring more in if you want. We can bring more.
We can bring more in, more people, and I'm just like, I mean, I don't know, girl. He stopped for you, and like,
is it even worth all that? Like at this, like, oh, it's okay.
At this point, if he stopped, he didn't even let you finish, girl. Like, you don't need to bring nobody else. Don't disappoint nobody else. You know, like.
But he let her touch his dragon, so I guess that was like, I think he makes that. It's like, I make it up to you by letting you ride my dragon, literally, not just the penis, like the actual dragon that I have. You know.
Right. Okay. A come up for you. That is like. She is like Black China. She is like Amber Rose. Like,
I love how like. I love, but also I'm kind of sad that you keep bringing this back to the Kardashian family.
I'm telling you, no, because once I saw white girls with braids, it's over. I was like, here we go. No. They even touch medieval folklore now. Shit, but like Black China, I was like, oh shit, okay. All you gotta do is pillow talk this man, because you know I don't know what she been doing. I don't know if she does her Kegels. She gotta be doing something, because from what I saw. as being part of the LGBTQ community. What I saw, I was not attracted,
Not
but
impressed.
not impressed at all. But apparently, she was doing something to get to this man, and he took her
She was
anyway.
making the right noises, apparently. It was I feel like it
Right.
had to be the noises. But here's the thing. I will say that, again, foreshadowing for stuff later, she ends up being one of the more interesting people in the story later on. So hopefully this just like sets her along the path of being that interesting person. Like they're just kind of giving us an overview of her, like seeing her early on, so that later on she does get to be that interesting person later. Because right now it was giving like, this is our Targaryen. I'm gonna stick it beside him. I'm gonna go wherever he goes and wherever he takes me. That's what it gave.
Yeah.
She's getting flued out to the Vale where his wife was. Hopefully not. Hopefully they're going somewhere else.
She's the Tiny to his Ti.
Ugh.
She gonna stick beside him.
She gonna stick beside him.
Yeah.
Not that Tiny's any better though, and not that she's. We'll see. We'll see.
We'll see.
Relationship. We'll see.
Yeah.
Speaking of this man and the things that he does, Daemon. What is it about men named Daemon? I feel like there's a lot of stuff going on with Daemons.
Daemons are demons.
Apparently. So another thing about Daemon is that like that whole gold cloaks thing, and the power building there. We see that like while he's not actively like doing treason and like saying like, oh, I'm ready for that throne, bro, like they doing stuff like that, like he is saying, like he did say what he said,
yeah,
about the heir for the day. And he did say what he said to Rhaenyra about knowing that he was the heir or whatever, right? Like, and like them having that conversation,
right?
So we know this man does want power. And whenever he was listening into the small council meeting that his brother was having, and he was smiling when his brother was sticking up for him, I do feel like there's a level of like, I feel like he probably tosses a coin every day about how he feels about being ambitious, right? Like, is he going to try to undermine his brother, or is he going to just go, because he knows he doesn't have the support of the people who are around that court to be able to make any power moves and like actually make anything happen. So he can't really do that, but he can make himself like competent enough as he does to like kind of press in like why he would be good at the job should the job become open for him, right? And so it was really interesting to me, as you were mentioning earlier, about the Valerian talking about like the Triarchy and how it's like a part of the like port system, and how, because like I talked about this earlier, the High Towers are from Old Town, and that is one of the oldest ports in Westeros, and it has the most money coming in. And there's a couple of other ports that are major, but that's like the big major port for like other countries and stuff. And King's Landing is relatively a new port, and it's not as well traversed yet. So they have to do their best to make sure that they're maintaining the waterways for that entry into those ports. And the fact that there's people over like near enough to them to make that could be possibly become a problem, they could blockade them, is something to note, because that's like a lot of money and revenue and trade that would not be coming into Westeros. And the fact that they're just like backhanding it when he keeps bringing it up is really messed up. And I love what happens later. It's gonna tie into Daemon's whole where does he look for power situation. And we know that he's a swashbuckling kind of like, I'm gonna fight my way out of a scrape kind of thing. So we'll see what happens. I feel like there's so many ways that Otto Hightower tries to set up keeping that man from being involved in what's happening in King's Landing. So I think that we're due to see some really interesting stuff. The way that Daemon has built a reputation among men who can fight through like the gold cloaks and his prowess on like tourneys, and in like this upcoming conflict or current conflict that's going to come up around the Triarchy.
I feel like the thing about, you know what, I wouldn't be surprised if he decided to join the Triarchy and start fucking shit up. And like the only way that they could fix it is by trying to reinstate him as heir. Or if anything, because of the fact that Corlys at first was like, oh, technically the only one that sided with Daemon, then, you know, later on, maybe he'll try to get himself also married to one of Corlys's daughters, possibly. Because then it's like if you have like the gold cloak, so you got land, you got people on land. But if you have the sea too, that will be the thing. That will really like clinch his claim and stuff. And
But
so
he has that troublesome thing that he's already married to someone who is in a position that's far away from court.
right, but like the thing about it is that Rhaenys parents, right? Wasn't didn't Jaharis have two wives?
No, no, that
Oh,
was the
okay.
grandfather. Like that was the old like Aegon the Conqueror. He had two
Okay.
wives. What were
Okay,
her
well,
sisters?
that
That
ain't
were her two sisters. His two wives. Yes.
ain't nothing but a thing. Damon's gonna kill his wife because he already been calling her a bronze bitch. He don't give a shit about her. He's about to bring his mistress over to her house. You finna
But
die.
I
Like,
feel like my thing is that look, the reason like she has a lot of power where she is. We don't see her at court for a reason. She doesn't have power at court. But his wife has power on her land. None of the people that are in her court, like back in the Vale, F with Damon. That's why he don't want to be there, because don't nobody F with him there. So
um,
I don't think that his wife is as easy. If his wife were easy to kill, he would have killed her already. Is what I'm thinking. I think
true.
he's got to figure out another way to get around that because she's not simple, and it's not something that he can like fix, quote unquote, fix for himself.
Maybe he'll annul the marriage if they didn't do the deed. Who knows? We'll see. Um, I guess to move on to our last part, not really sure what to name this. Should it be symbolism? I don't necessarily know if it's Easter eggs.
Yeah, I guess like symbolism. Like we've like we talking about chaos that we foretelling, and this is just kind of
Yeah.
like the storytelling foretelling kind of section.
Yeah, yeah. So what we have listed, the first thing that we have on here is childbed is a battlefield. So rip Emma, because that is one of the first things that Emma, Rhaenyra's mom, told Rhaenyra was that childbed is going to be their battlefield. That's where they fight their own wars. And that is where she ended up dying. And so I thought that was a powerful foreshadowing, and I wonder how that's going to impact Rhaenyra because, you know, I mean, George R. R. Martin, I know that he bases a lot of like his stories off of actual history and stuff. And so maybe Rhaenyra will be like the original Queen Elizabeth, who did not have any children because of the fact that she wanted to retain her power. But then there will also be that heir problem,
Mm-hmm.
possibly.
Yeah, and I also think that like I think that Ama was calling childbirth the battlefield because she like there it is for her, right?
Hmm.
But also like in resignation of like in recognition of the fact that like the men were never going to pass power on to the women, so the only place that
Yeah.
they have to put themselves on the board is by birthing another man, which is really really sad, really really
Yeah.
unfortunate. A lot of things, and it's sad. Like in this case, especially, um, someone she trusted. If we were talking about it in war terms, the commander that she battles under betrayed her on the biggest battle of her life,
Yeah.
and I could not see how a daughter that learns about because she's not there, so she doesn't know all the details yet. Maybe she learns about it. I
Yeah.
can't see a daughter who learns the truth about what happened on her mother's deathbed taking kindly to either the commander who was in charge of that thing or to the idea of being pregnant. Like I could see that being an issue for her because that is a
Yeah.
scary thing to like learn that took out your mom and like how it all came to bear. So you can even trust, like you think she would trust her father because that's her father, but she learns she can't trust him. Then what man can she trust? Can she even trust any husband that she has? To would he
Yeah.
not betray her in the same way later?
Yeah.
So I could see that being a lot of like turmoil in Rhaenyra's brain.
Definitely. Definitely. Another thing that we had on here is the tourney for heirs. And so that's the tourney that Viserys put on because he was certain that his wife was going to have a boy. And so during Emma's like last breath, while she's being like forcefully like cut open to get this baby out, there were times where like the fight between Christian and Daemon was going on. And so the times when Daemon was winning, I thought, oh, you know what? This baby's about to be a girl. This is about to be Visenya because Rhaenyra wanted to name the baby Visenya if it was a girl or whatever. And then other times where it was just like, okay, Damon's not winning. Is it going to be a boy? And so ultimately, Christian won the tourney and the baby was a boy. And Damon was unseated for a day. But I thought that that was really interesting too, just to see how the showrunners decided to play out that the two battles technically simultaneously.
Yeah, and if you watch the after show, I know this we had to run to this, but if you run to the after show, they do talk about that, like how they why they juxtapose those two scenes.
Yeah, I thought that it was just really, I thought it was a good way for them to have that play out. Um, yeah, and we also have Viserys, his cuts from the throne. So something that we also noted earlier is the fact that Viserys had like this thing, like he had this cut on his back that could not heal. They were putting leeches on it, still wouldn't heal. They were like picking up like pus from it, gross. Like this was nasty. And they ended up like burning it, I guess. We don't know if it actually healed post them burning it, but in any case, he had this cut on his back and it wouldn't leave and stuff. So we start off with that. And I figured that, you know what, maybe that's just trials of him being a king, is that he's going to get these different cuts. He's not even going to see it coming. He's going to have these different cuts. But he got another one after he banished Daemon to go to his wife at the Vale and made Rhaenyra the heir. So I'm wondering, and maybe Viserys just getting cuts on from the throne. I wonder if that's going to be something that we see throughout the season of him getting more and more cuts from sitting on the throne because he's not supposed to be there, possibly.
Yeah, that's something that is set up in the lore of the Iron Throne is that anyone that's not supposed to sit that seat finds it unbearably uncomfortable and does suffer from cuts like no other monarch who actually can like suits the throne. Like Jaehaerys never got cut on the Iron Throne. The good king that everyone holds him like well renowned. I think he might have got like a cut or two like at the end of his reign after the Great Council chose a cousin over his daughter, kind of thing. But I don't think that so the best king never got cut during like the good reign that he had, right?
Right.
But it's always the ones who aren't suited who get it, and it's so I think the way that the Game of Thrones runs and how frequently that's going to get changed about, who's going to sit there, I think we're going to see a lot of people get cut sitting on that seat.
Definitely. We're going to see a lot of cuts and we're going to see how it all plays out. Um, Another symbol that we noted in the episode was Alicent's cuticles. So, as we noted, Alicent, I believe she has some form of anxiety, definitely from her father's place as Hand of the King and from being like the best friend of Rhaenyra. Like, she has some form of anxiety. And what she does to cope is bite her cuticles. And so during the tourney, they actually pan in on her hands. So you see how all of her cuticles are very bloody. Not spilling with blood, but bloody enough that like clearly it's a bad habit and she'll bite any of her cuticles as long as they're there. And so I wonder if it's going to be something that we see more often within the season is like depending on how anxious Allison is, we'll see how badly her cuticles look like.
Yeah, and I can also see like the tie over into the women's war and the battlefield, right? Like we talked about earlier, like the battlefield is the childbed. Um,
Right.
I think that we're gonna keep because the men have tourneys and the Iron Throne to cut into them and make them bleed. Um,
Yeah.
Highlighting where the women who are trying to grasp for power, where their bleeds come from, and like how they're also um, dealing with their own battles in certain ways for again for power. We'll see like that come up. So that, I guess that means that we'll probably see Rhaenyra. Like we have to look out for Rhaenyra's burns and cuts, and possibly
Yeah.
also Rhaenys burns and cuts.
Right. Right. And the last symbol that we have is the superstition of dreams. So the episode starts out with Viserys' dream of having this son that he was going to place on the Iron Throne and crown and stuff. And he did have a son. He just died. But the episode also ends with a dream, but in particular, it's Aegon's dream. Now, I don't know if it's the long night. I assumed that it was based off of like the prophecy because they talked about how there's this great power that's going to come from the north and that with snow and the only people that would be able to stop it would be the Targaryens being in power and stuff. And so I wonder like how many other dreams we're going to see throughout the season um as time goes on.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me because that wasn't a dream that Aegon had. It was a dream that someone else in his family, I think it was his sister Daenerys, had. But it's like because we keep talking about patriarchy, right? And it's really intriguing to me that the woman has the dream, and yet he like feels compelled to act on it. And honestly, it was her dream that also compelled them to go from Valyria before the Doom happened, and everybody in Valyria got killed out. And so they
Yeah,
ended up in Westeros and ruling Westeros instead of being in Valyria and dying out with their dragons. So they're always right to follow the dreams of the women in their family, but
right.
we don't put them on the throne. And so I'm really intrigued by like these things, what the women dream about versus what the men dream about. You know, Viserys got the throne under um, circumstances that were not actively good for him in the long run, as we see. And like Damon is also seeming like he's dreaming for power or not. We'll see how that goes. Rhaenyra never dreamt for power. She was just dreaming for. She wanted to go fly on her dragon and eat cake, as she told Alicent, right?
Yeah.
So it's like we'll see where all these dreams get people, and how that falls.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm very interested to see what dreams Rhaenyra will have now that she's the heir. Um, and how prophetic it will be either for her reign or whoever is going to reign on the Iron Throne after Viserys.
I'm really glad that they showed that she actually like had a lot of thought behind how she was like responding to this stuff, and
Yeah.
that like prophecy, oh, that like that was the thing that was like a secret passed down from Targaryen royalty to Targaryen royalty, was the secret about this like prophecy for the Song of Ice and Fire.
Mhm.
I i really like, this is going back to book things. I wonder if that will change how George R. R. Martin decides to do the different ending for the book series that he's supposed to do. Like it's going to be different than what happened in the TV show.
Mhm.
I wonder if like him going back to that prophecy will change up how he handles the ending of the series in the books. Because it would make that would make more sense to me. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see how it all plays out. But yeah, that was episode 1 of House of Dragon, and this is our recap episode of House of Dragon.
Episode 1.
Episode 1.
Thanks for joining us. As you know, you can catch us on the For All Nerds Network as Castle Black, and find us on SoundCloud and on any device, listening device of your platform of your choice. We also would love if you could stop over at our T Public store and grab all the merch that you can. Please be sure to follow us at Castle Black Pod on Twitter, and For All Nerds also on Twitter and Instagram. And you can also make sure that you find us everywhere. Am I missing a social shout out for the team?
I think we are also on TikTok as well, guys. So follow us on TikTok. And yeah, find us on your preferred platform, whether that is SoundCloud, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Podomatic. We are everywhere that For All Nerds is. So definitely go check us out and follow us. And if you can, please make sure to become part of our Patreon. We would love to have that support from you guys because For All Nerds and Castle Black podcast is independently funded. So any help that you could provide, we will greatly appreciate it.
It goes to making the podcast special, and for you to hear our voices, all the better.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks for joining us, and thank you, Chika, for being the great new co-host to the Castle Black Pod. I'm really excited about what we're going to see this season, and it's going to be fun talking all things chaos with you.
Yes, it's going to be so much fun getting into all of the chaos that we see. Guys, make sure to use hashtag House of the Dragoons because that's what we're going to be using, among other hashtags. But that one, I feel like that's going to be a definite one that we're going to be putting out. So yeah.
Until next time.
Bye.